John, and geez, I forget the name. What was his name across the street?
Wes.
Wes and Mary, was her name Mary?
Yeah.
They had a cabin they rented down Seaside, near Seaside.
Mm-hmm.
And Lois went along with the kids, whoever they had then. In the morning one day, but I had to work, so I said, I'll come down after work. So I went down after work, but by that time, it started to get dark.
Mm-hmm.
So it was too late to go in the water, except I wanted to at least get my feet wet. Because I saw the fluorescence on the waves as they rippled in. You saw that already. At night, you have to see it. The whole, it's amazing. It's it's something odd, because you get this line of fluorescence and another line of fluorescence. So I'm in there trying to get closer to it.
Were you in there with Wes?
No, he was waiting at the pavilion.
Okay.
And I took my shoes off and socks, put them on the pavilion and went in. And I started going deeper and deeper, rolled my pants up. So all of a sudden, I heard someone yell, "Halt!" And I turned around. Oh, I was ready to come out. I started to walk out. Someone yelled, "Halt!" And I stopped. And it was the Coast Guard. And when I got up, the guy came in and took my arm and took me to the Jeep that they were in. And he said, if you would have taken one... In fact, I heard the gun click when he loaded it, when he pulled the trigger back. I think that's what made me stop, really, not the word "halt," because I thought at first it was Wes saying something. So anyway, the guy said, if you would have taken one more step, I would have shot. Now, I don't think he would have shot to kill, but he would have shot. So Wes and I had to go to the station, barracks there, wherever it was. And they'd made us wait and ask a lot of questions, the name and where I worked. And the word Strauss bothered him too, because that's German. Then he said, who do you know at work that we can call to verify to verify your name? And I thought of Howard Deering. I worked with him. So they called Howard Deering. He answered. He said, yeah, I know Richard. He said, lock him up. That's what he actually said, lock him up.
So what happened?
So that was it. But we had to sit there till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Where? Just in the station?
In the station, yeah. Till they cleared us with the Coast Guard, the Army, the Navy, every service. They had to check if they had any record of my name.
So they thought you might have been German, or a German... What?
I'm coming from a submarine or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just a matter of principle, They had to do it regardless of how innocent it might have looked. First I was at the American Armament working. And they were taken over by Vultee. Consolidated Vultee was the name at that time of this company that was going to build what they call the GB4.
TB.
Yeah, it was a torpedo bomber, right? And they took over that company, took over that building, along with a lot of a couple of Mack truck buildings, 5C for one, and they picked out, they offered a job. 30 of us went to Bridgeport, and we were oriented at Chance Vaught. Yeah, where they were making the Corsair. So we got familiar with the production of the airplane by going through that shop. And when we went to the hangar, and when we opened the door of the hangar, the first thing I saw was the fold of the wing, the joint.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the most fascinating thing I ever saw. As far as design, all the colored wires, different colored, coated piping, and the way the structure was put together. And that wing had a socket in it that would, when it would open, a pin would come out of the socket. When it went back, the pin would drop in that locking type. And after the pin was in place, another secure pin would go through that to make sure it couldn't bounce out.
And what did you do there?
All I did was handle blueprints. I made a record of the changes, so that the latest change would be packed to send to Allentown, that there would be no, surplus drawings. What I was doing was, they'd give me the latest drawing, and there would be a list of revisions already that had been made. Then as I went through the rest of the drawings, whenever I saw one of those revisions, see, I'd get all the same number first, the same number drawing, and all the drawings of that number that had a previous revision, I would put aside, so that they'd only have the latest revision. Then I'd go to the next drawing, the next. That's all I did. But I was getting familiar with the design,
And this was in Bridgeport. You did this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you worked at Queen City too, in Allentown.
Queen City
Airport.
No, that was Consolidated Multi.
You worked there.
Yeah.
What did you do there?
I was like liaison engineer. I worked with my boss was Clarence Dorset. He was the project engineer. And he would get changes. They were building these for the Navy. And the Navy would send him changes to the airplane that they were building. Revisions. And I would get a copy of the revision and decide whether it was, did they tell me it? There were 3 classes of revisions, one for safety, one to facilitate production, and one safety. Must have been to save money. I don't think so. I don't remember the other class. I'll think of it. But then I would, when you get this revision, I'd go back to the shop. Let's say they had a revision for safety. Well, that had to be done all the way up to the first airplane. Everyone produced would have that feature, whatever it was. It might have been to change a line, to change material in something, or whatever. It was to make the airplane more safe for the pilot, of course. So I would check to see what number airplane they were at and change the paperwork so that from there on, not for one they were at that time. If it was a safety, I had to go to the first one, the paperwork for the first one, and change it, and add that revision to the order that they had. And if it was to facilitate production, I would go down and see where they were at on that particular item. They might have been changing some gadget in there so that it could be put together quicker, bought sooner, or whatever problem they might have had in production on that item to facilitate production. If they didn't have it yet on, let's say, airplane number 10, then from number 10 back, all the papers for that revision had to be changed. That was my job. I worked with the project coordinator. Oh, and I rewrote
Not much.
I did a lot of writing.
Don't say that.
I had to write, I had to change the
I'm ready to go.
contract.
Not the read.
Can you talk a little louder?
Yeah, I had to change the item that it would have affected on the contract. I wrote the draft for those changes in the contract. Then the project coordinator would go over them and, correct them if it would, rewrite them if necessary. I was called what was my title?
What should I do?
Quality?
My title was specification writer. Well, that was more or less a military order.
A what?
No,
A military...
contract, yeah. A Navy contract. Gun-making fellas would, there were stock chasers, a lot of stock chasers they had to have to keep the stock available, as they were going. And one of them said, we need a relief tube for a left-hand pilot. And she went to the stock room and asked for a relief tube for a left-hand pilot.
A relief tube.
That's the thing they urinated in the airplane.
And she was embarrassed.
Well, I guess so, but she found out what it was. And the fact that there's no difference between left and right.
Mm-hmm.
They said there was a left-hand one.
A left-hand relief tube.
See, they didn't have that much freedom to fool around. They could get disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
The girl would have reported it to her boss.
Now, were you...
Job and my family.
What's that?
I was more interested, in my job and my family than to think about worldly conditions.
Was it a concern? No. World War II.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, when I was oriented up at Bridgeport, we were with, I think there were about 8 of us in one building, like a bed and breakfast place. We stayed there for weeks at a time. I'd come home weekends, and I was up there, must have been about 3-4 months before we got started in Allentown.
Just what was that again?
Well, Consolidated Vultee paid for about a 3-week
It would be my
course at Lehigh University on
last hour.
aircraft production. I don't remember how.
Well, I saw some of your notes. It looked like you learned about statics,
Oh.
correct? Like forces on wings and...
Yeah. That's yeah.
That was a pretty intense course, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you had to learn stresses
Yeah.
on wing structure, you know, what do they call those? Well,